Helen. Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be here.
Part two of our imposter syndrome conversation. When does it happen to us? So, you want to lead? You want me to lead? How do we want to do this?
It happens to me all the time. It happens to me right now, honestly. I'm like, what business do I have talking about imposter syndrome with Tim Wenzel? Seriously. How about
Well,
you?
how about I want to go to the first time I really realized it was happening and that first struggle that I had to figure it out. So, whether you want to talk about your run of the mill or you want to go to like one of your most difficult times, I'm going to go to my most difficult.
Yeah, let's hear your most difficult, and then I'll add one in, and then I'll put in an observation of when I see others at their most difficult.
All right. So back in 2013, I became a consultant at Facebook and I was designing executive protection program for the CEO. So not a small thing. Um, Definitely in the limelight. And before that, I had spent my 20s in Iraq. I did the invasion with the US military. I went back as a security contractor, doing a bunch of dangerous stuff in a very dangerous place. By the way, completely fine with it. I learned that corporate America produces more stress for me than a war zone does. Because a war zone is actually very simple. We're trying not to die today, and if people try to kill us, we're trying to kill them back. Super easy. Corporate America,
I know.
not so easy. Isn't that strange?
No, it's complicated and it's emotional, and in a way, there are fewer outlets. So it makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. So I got to California and I started having all of these meetings. Um, and they were all referencing like Port 81 and this. I was like, do we have a ship somewhere? Like, where are all these porthole windows? And they were like, idiot. We're talking about, yeah, I know you're talking about the network. What does that have to do with executive protection? And they were like, this is literally what security is. And at that point in time, I said, wow, I'm totally getting fired. But the problem is, I just moved to California all the way across the country. I quit my job for this. Didn't want to go back to that job. Didn't think maybe I could even. Um, and then I developed a plan. I said, you know what? All I have to do is fake it for 6 months, put on a good show. Because I can really draw anything out for 6 months. And during that time, I can find another actual job that I can do. But over that 6 months, I didn't sleep most nights. I would wake up, not with like a panic attack, but like my brain would be busy and my heart would be pounding. Not like I was gonna have a heart attack or anything, but like I was waking up overstressed and trying to figure out how I was going to manage my meetings and make it look like I was putting on a good show. And what I learned was I didn't have to do it all alone. And that was the very beginning of my attempts to cope with it. But that's where I first encountered it. And I thought that maybe I could last 6 months. I lasted almost 10 years, which is shocking. So isn't that interesting though? Because a lot of people say, like, oh my gosh, you spent so much time overseas and like how could anything freak you out? And you switch to a different environment, even subject matter that you're used to with a completely different emphasis, right? Everything had to be, aligned with IT. We were using technology and everything. Houses run by iPads. What? And all of a sudden, I'm completely out of my element and on the verge of like anxiety attacks.
It makes sense. I think you raise a really interesting point. It's about the pivot too, that change, the change in life. You know, I learned to code when I was 9. I was lucky. I was a turtle on an Apple II. But when I got to tech school and I was the only like woman in the class and we were learning things that were completely different, um, I was just absolutely racked with anxiety. And then pivoting over to a job after completing the beginning of my certs and diplomas, um, it's actually the complete opposite. So I'm
Hmm.
just going to compare my experience to, war-torn Iraq and yours, but like the change of in school, you're learning about how tech, um, you're learning how this thing functions and that thing functions and all of these pieces. And then you go into your corporate or nonprofit role, and what you're trying to do is fit those pieces into the reality that exists. So it's actually completely flipping your brain inside out. And it would have been flipping your brain inside out from your journey as well. You were doing many things that you would have intense, repetitive training on, and then you moved into an environment where you didn't have any, and you're trying like you lost all the ropes and ladders that you used to use to lift
Yeah.
yourself up and climb through the journey.
So there's a
uh,
common theme with us, a significant change in environment.
yeah.
Interesting. Me, war zone to corporate America, you, school to real
Computer to
life.
computer,
And
same
it
thing.
actually shows you that school is useless and can't actually prepare you for real life too, I think.
I learned to learn in school. I mean, I think yeah, there's a lot of things that I benefited from. Actually, the one time that I completely, absolutely overcame my imposter syndrome for 30 minutes was because of school. So I have to give that a
Yeah.
credit. In 2022, I had been accepted to do my doctorate. Had been trying to figure out for a couple of years, where am I going to find technology, business, and nonprofits that I can create this combination of things and get a doctorate in the things that I'm most interested in to propel the change I'm trying to see. Um, and about a month, I'd been accepted. The dean said something to me like, "How do you have time to do all that?" And I was asking me that. He's like, look at where he's come from. And a month before I was supposed to pay in my $100,000 and add this onto my consulting practice. And um, I, at 48 years old, I thought to myself, maybe I'm good enough. I literally never had that thought in my
Hmm.
entire before that moment of like, maybe I actually know enough that I can keep driving positive change in the areas that I have identified are helpful, nonprofit tech. And I don't need to keep climbing because I've been in school nonstop since my 20s. I don't need to keep doing these things. So um,
Wow.
it does align with your academic perspective, but I was really, really stoked to get all of that knowledge. And I still feel lazy from time to time that I didn't actually go and pursue it. Maybe I'll do it when I'm, 100. Although I'm pretty sure AI is going to kill it. But I'd never had that kind of clarity or relief from thinking, "Hmm, maybe I have enough tools to keep doing cool things."
That's awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to end. And anybody who watches this, I think they can ask themselves that question. Uh, does this impact me when I change environments? Right? Is it unfamiliar subject matter? Is it new teams or people? I think that's a common theme. And yeah, would love to hear anybody's thoughts.
And I want to add one point though, because another time in my career when I had the strongest imposter syndrome, I was doing SAP basis for a corporate energy company, and I was terrible at it and I hated it. And I wish I'd listened to my imposter syndrome earlier. You don't actually need to succeed in the environment that you're feeling uncomfortable with. So I think there's another side to this, which is, yeah, you're probably good enough, and try to think about that
Mhm.
and enjoy it if it's a feeling you haven't had. But hey, if your imposter syndrome doesn't stop, maybe you're working with a bunch of dummies. Maybe it's not the right place. Maybe this is not good for you. And it's a gift and you should listen and go.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And yeah, there's all sorts of things that it can learn to mean. And I know later we'll talk about like what we've learned that it means to us most of the time. And that's not the same for everyone. But I have found that it is thematic and it's instructive actually, and it can become useful. All
Yeah,
right.
I've got imposter syndrome right now, trying to think of what's a modern reference to Jiminy Cricket. But it's if it's chirping at you, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, but it's talking for a reason. What's it
Let your
say?
imposter syndrome be your guide. There we
Perfect.
go. All right, I'll catch you on the next one.
Gotcha.
See ya.